All right. Yeah, we can take the lights down. That's great. So, and I'll just mention for people who are listening to the recordings, I know there's some folks who listen who aren't actually able to attend physically. So we'll be doing our first class at the Meditation Center on May 30th, which is a Tuesday. And you can check the website if you're looking for more information on that. So as we begin tonight, maybe we just take a moment to do our purification of the mind, which is quite simply just a way of briefly checking in with ourselves and to see what might be there that would be helpful to let go of for the period of time that we're going to be here practicing meditation and talking about the Dharma. So there might be just feelings of general agitation in your mind if you're concerned about things, busyness in life, activities, deadlines, things like this. They can cause a bit of agitation, a bit of stress or worry. So if you notice that you have feelings like this in the mind and in the body, it's possible just by noticing those to intentionally put them down for a period of time, knowing that you'll return to them later with a refreshed mind and spirit, and you'll be more effective at working with them with wisdom. So anything that is a hindrance to the practice of meditation, you can set that aside, put that down, and then we'll spend a moment cultivating some positive states of consciousness. And maybe tonight we'll just focus on metta bhavana, which is cultivation of loving kindness. And this is one of the most wonderful of the Brahma Viharas because the feeling is just so warm and special. It is, after all, the feeling of loving kindness. So a helpful way to cultivate loving kindness in the mind and body is to picture someone that you feel is just unconditionally deserving of loving kindness. So a lot of times picturing a baby works great. If you have a grandchild, if you have somehow in your circle of friends and family a little toddler or a baby, you know how it feels to hold the baby, to smell the baby's hair, to just cuddle that little innocent being, see their smile, the look on their face, and their complete helplessness. And just naturally, spontaneously from within you comes this feeling of deep loving kindness. Just love and care for this baby. Or you could also use the image of just a loved one. Could be a family member, a child, a parent, could be anybody. Just picturing someone, imagining the feeling of love that you feel when you look at them or spend time with them. And then just noticing how this warmness in your heart, it radiates outward. And so from here you might extend that feeling of loving kindness to others. Other beings that you don't know, that you haven't met, that are certainly also worthy of receiving love and kindness. So with that, I'll sound the bell. Let there be peace. Let there be peace. Namaskar, everyone. Welcome back. And so if you want to take a moment to get to get situated for our meditation together, whether you'd like to sit or lay, however you'd like to be, Make use of the extra cushions and yoga mats if you'd like to. Prepare the body for a period of sitting. Looking for some of the obvious ways that there is conflict in the body. Sometimes we'll discover that if we're sitting at an angle, maybe leaning to one side or the other. There's a little more tension on one side of the body than the other, and that can lead to fatigue. You might look at the symmetry of the body overall to make sure that both sides are doing about the same thing. And then when you're sitting comfortably in your chair or on your position on the floor, just begin to let the muscles of the body relax. Let the eyes close softly. Let the breath become free and natural, not controlled or manipulated in any way. And so we begin with this soft, pliable body, positioned in a comfortable, pleasant way. And now I'll sound the bell, and I'll start to guide us through the practice. Follow the sound of the bell into silence. And notice how that silence has the effect of quieting the mind quite naturally and immediately. Let that silence be an invitation to turn your senses inward and to let go of your curiosity about the outside world, the engagement with the outside world. You can just let go of that. Focus instead on the feeling of being present in your own body. What it feels like to just be sitting here right now. What it feels like to be laying here. What it feels like inside your body and inside your mind. And just observing that, just noticing what is true in this moment, just being present. You feel that sense of deep calm, of deep awareness. Now we can take that sense of awareness and bring it up to the top part of the head, to the area of the scalp, and open up the awareness to any physical sensations that might be present in the scalp. So just take a moment to observe. With awareness in the scalp, what are the sensations that you notice? There are sometimes temperature sensations, feeling the room as being warm or cool. Sometimes there is an itch on the scalp or a tickle. Sometimes you'll detect air movement in the room. Sometimes there are other sensations on the surface of the skin, pulsations, tingling. So you're just bringing the awareness to the scalp, opening it up, not looking for anything in particular, just noticing what's there, watching as it comes and goes. And then if you notice any tension anywhere in the scalp, you can make note of that and just allow it to leave the body. Recognizing that tension, you can just offer it unconditional release. Let it leave the body, and you continue to abide in the peacefulness that remains. From the scalp, we can allow the awareness to move downward. We'll start to guide it down through the forehead, also down through the temples. Feel it moving a bit further through the eyebrows and into the eyes. And once again, just open up the awareness to whatever sensations are present. And as you observe the sensations, remember there's nothing that you're supposed to feel. There's nothing you shouldn't feel. Nothing in particular you need to be looking for. You're just opening up to whatever makes itself known. Whatever sensations become known by awareness. And then when you do notice these sensations, you can be aware of how they feel. But you can also do that without judging them or evaluating them. You can do it without thinking about it too much. Just have the experience. And if there's tension anywhere, again, just release. Notice and release. A very simple transaction. I'm aware of tension in the forehead. I release. I'm aware of tension in the eyebrows. I release. Just follow that same process. And then we'll move the awareness from the temples downward into the ears. Open up to the sensations. The ears are sensitive parts of the body. You may notice various sensations. Just let yourself experience them without stories attached, without interior dialogue. Let go of tension and feel the flow of awareness as it moves forward from the ears into the cheekbones. Feel it passing forward into the face. And everywhere that awareness moves, there's a knowing of sensation. Just what's there, not what you want to feel, just what's there. From the eyes, let the awareness move downward through the nose. Feel it traveling downward, down to the lips and the mouth and the chin. So now the whole face is embraced by this awareness, observing sensations, letting go of tension wherever you find it. Check in with some of the obvious places, the jaws, the teeth, the lips, sometimes the muscles around the nose. Let all that tension go. We just let it go unconditionally. Whatever we find, we just release it. You may go. You may go. Continue to observe. Now let's move the awareness from the chin. We'll feel it passing downward through the neck, into the throat, and moving back through the sides of the neck, into the back part of the neck. Just aware of those sensations. Just noticing the tension, letting it go, softening the body, releasing the tension. Moving the awareness down now into the shoulders, spending a moment observing the sensations just as they are. Temperature, sometimes air movement, sometimes contact between the skin and the clothing, or between the body and the surface upon which you're resting. And let the tension in the shoulders go. Sometimes we shrug without being aware. You can let the shoulders drop, let the shrugging leave the body. And notice how each time you release tension, there is an increasing feeling of peacefulness in the body. Just a very natural peacefulness. And then from the shoulders, we can move the awareness down into the upper arms. And feel as that awareness moves through the different parts of the upper arms, the biceps, all the way from the top to the bottom, the inside part of the upper arm, the back or the triceps, and the outside part, releasing all the tension, feeling that flow of awareness moving down through the elbow joints now, setting you free, leaving you feeling peaceful. Feel the awareness flowing through the forearms and down into the wrists. Sometimes you can really feel that flow of awareness moving, sort of a warm, subtle, peaceful flow. Feel it passing through the wrists into the hands. And let the awareness illuminate the different parts of the hands, the heels and the palms. And moving to the tops of the hands, the thumbs and the fingers. Bring that awareness down into the fingernails and the fingertips. Take a few minutes here. What sensations can you feel in the fingernails? You may become aware of very subtle sensations, feelings of energy. Just observe. And from the fingertips now, we'll bring the awareness to the top of the chest, kind of spreading along the collarbones, and then allowing the awareness to move downward through the chest. Feel it moving through all the muscles and the tissue of the chest, all the way down to the base of the sternum. And then from the sternum, feel the awareness moving outward through the rib cage. As we move the awareness through the body, we are careful to include each and every part in this observation of sensation. Nothing is left out, just making sure every part is equally cared for, equally observed. Bring the awareness to the underarms and allow it to move downward through the sides of the body. You'll feel it move all the way down to the waist. And once it's there, you can bring it forward into your belly. And then within the belly, because there is movement, you might notice sensations of rising and falling with the breath. You might notice that in the tummy, or you might notice feelings of expansion and contraction. Let any tension in the belly go, so it is free and relaxed. Continue observing And then from the belly, we'll bring the awareness around to the top of the back. We'll start to investigate the sensations in the upper third of the back. So feel that moving downward from the base of the neck, through the shoulder blades, throughout the different parts of the upper back. You can just continue moving that awareness downward through the middle third of the back. And continue to move that awareness downward through the lower third of the back. Let go of all the tension. And if there's sensations of discomfort anywhere in the back or anywhere else in the body as we move through, just allow all the space necessary in your awareness, in your field of awareness. Allow all this space for those sensations to be just as they are. And you find if you let them be as they are, give them space, that you don't need to tighten up. You don't need to generate aversion toward the difficult sensations. You can certainly move to alleviate unpleasant sensations, but you'll notice that much of this is a mindset that is ready to let go, can allow for sensations to be without generating aversion, which is one of the causes of dis-ease and suffering in the body. And then from the lower back, let the awareness move down into the sit bones. Feel it passing through the hips, into and throughout the pelvis, observing and releasing, and moving right down into the thighs, observing the different parts, the tops, then the outside part of the thighs, followed by the underside, and then the inside. Just observing, just releasing. This is our wholesome habit pattern that we're developing. Noticing without judgment, without craving, allowing tension to leave unconditionally. From the thighs, we move through the knees. From the knees, we move into the calves and the shins. From the calves and shins, we move down into the ankles. And then from the ankles into the feet. The sensations of the heels, the soles of the feet, the balls of the feet. Moving awareness to the tops of the feet, down into the toes. Move the awareness now into the tips of the toes and into the toenails. And just allow a few moments here of patient, attentive awareness. Focusing on the toenails. What are the sensations? Just observe. Now from the toes, once again, we'll bring the awareness to the top of the head and to the area of the scalp. But this time you can just begin to move your awareness down through your body at your own pace. Whatever pace suits you. But try to move through each part systematically so nothing is left out. But you'll find that you can move through quite quickly if you choose to, just spending a moment in each part, breathing in, noticing the sensations, breathing out, releasing the tension. Then you can move to the next part and the next part. Notice the places where tension has come back or maybe appeared for the first time tonight. And you can treat that tension with the same practice, which is just to allow it to leave the body. Noticing tension allows us to release it. So this practice of mindful awareness is very helpful. Noticing tension, we can just let it go. Just let it go. And with that, we let go of the memories that are causing the tension, the worries that make us tense up, the fears that make us feel uncomfortable in the body. You can let go of all of that. And then when you've had a chance to move your awareness through the body, let's bring it up together to the nose, the area of the nose, and to the little patch of skin beneath the nostrils and above the upper lip. And for the next breath or two, just focus your awareness specifically on that one small spot. And then from that spot, you can expand the awareness a bit further into the rings of the nostrils. And then once again into the nasal passages. Observing these parts of the nose, just become aware of the touch of the breath. When there is breath, there is the sensation of touch. Be with that touch. Stay with it for the full duration. Breathing in, you'll notice the difference in intensity of the breath as it begins and as it slows and tapers and reverses direction. And then you'll notice the sensation of the out breath as it moves, slows and pauses. And then it reverses direction, becomes the next in-breath. Just be aware, watching the full duration of the in-breath, watching the full duration of the out-breath. And any sounds that come up are a wonderful opportunity to practice. Sometimes when we hear a sound, our awareness will be pulled away from the triangular area of the nose temporarily, just enough to be a distraction. But in the moment you notice that, and it's really quite natural, but in the moment you notice that, just guide the awareness back to the nose. Again, get in touch with the in-breath and the out-breath, the sensations of the breath. Try to stay focused on the movement and the touch and the sensations of the breath. And then if you're distracted by a physical sensation, a little tickle or an itch, you can, upon noticing that distraction, just let go of it. Guide the awareness back to the breath and to the nose. Focus once again. And this is how we sharpen the mind. This is how we develop a mind that is able to remain focused with fewer distractions. And if the mind begins to imagine, remember, we treat that just like the other distractions. When we notice, we bring the awareness back to the breath. We intentionally let go of the thoughts of the mind. Just focus on the incoming and outgoing breath, its touch, and the sensations. Let's remain focused on this for a while together. We'll do it in silence. All we need to do is stay focused on the breath, and when we notice the awareness moving because of a distraction, we'll bring it back. Let's just do that over and over as often as we need to. We'll share a few minutes together doing this, and then I'll sound the bell. Take your time coming out of that. Continue to show yourself love and compassion. Just be gentle with yourself. You deserve it. Be kind to yourself. Let yourself continue to enjoy the feeling of peacefulness from the meditation that doesn't have to end. Sometimes that's a little bit of a practice that we can work on, which is to just keep that going. And maybe it changes in intensity or frequency, but it really is possible to just kind of keep that going. More and more, it's one of the benefits of the practice. So, as we're transitioning here a little bit, kind of changing our level of attention, I'll share a little poem with you. This is by an author named Victoria Erickson. I don't know much about her except to know that she is a contemporary author. So she's with us now, writing. And here's a little excerpt that I wanted to share with you. Like most sensitive souls, you already know you're sensitive. You soak up other people's moods and desires like a sponge. You absorb sensation the way a paintbrush grabs each color it touches on a palette. The ethereal beauty of a dandelion, the shift of a season, the climax of a song, or a certain stirring scent can awaken such wonder they'll become your very breath itself, moving through you as fuel does to fire and wind does to waves. So that's Victoria Erickson. And it's interesting because I've really started to have those kinds of experiences here this spring. One of the big ones for me is to go outside, oftentimes first thing in the morning, and there's just this sweet heaviness in the air. There's this really sweet aroma that I really can't describe it, but it's there. And it's like when I encounter that, wow, it's just such a wonderful thing to notice. Or noticing the flower blossoms on the trees, or just all the neat little stuff that's falling out of the trees as the leaves are coming out. There's just all this stuff kind of laying around. Last night I had the experience of, I shared with some of you who were in here earlier, I was working on installing the washer and dryer unit at the meditation center. And the unit itself was fine, but I had to make a couple of trips to the hardware store to get some fittings and to get some vent pipe. And so it was one of those days where I started to encounter some frustration and be mindful of the frustration that I was experiencing. But my goal was to get that thing running last night so I could do a load of laundry and say it was done. So I was really excited about it, and motivated. But I was starting to get tired and I was starting to get frustrated. And then at about 8:45, I turned on the water faucets and realized that they were leaking terribly because they were old and the packing was dry. So there was a lot of water coming out, so I knew that, it wasn't going to happen tomorrow night, or last night, I should say. And so at the time it was about 8:45, and I knew I could make it to Menards before they closed and get the parts. So I thought, at least I'll spend this time, I'll go get the parts, and then they'll be there in the morning and I can do the work. So I thought it seemed like a good use of time. And so there was this part of me that was kind of frustrated and tired and feeling sorry for myself. And I went outside, and just the feeling in the air and the smell and the sounds of the birds in, kind of the late evening, and the beauty of the sky and the colors. And it was just all I could do to just, I was just so present with the beauty of what was around me. it was like the disappointment of the plumbing issues. It was gone. It just flushed away. And it was sort of like, I was kind of remembering, hey, wait a minute, I'm bummed out about the plumbing. I'm upset about it not working, and it's that part of you, that habit part, it just sort of wants to go back to that. This is my narrative. I'm unhappy about the plumbing. But there was so much in the present moment to be mindful of and to just allow that beauty to pour in. It just covered up completely all of my frustration. It was just hard to maintain that narrative of being bummed out about plumbing. So this poem, it really kind of touched on that for me, that the shift of a season, the climax of a song, or a certain stirring scent that can awaken such wonder, they'll become your very breath itself. And that experience of mindful awareness is just really available for all of us. And usually all it requires is just to remember, just for a little bit, just for a split second, oh, this is what's here. This is what's here. This is available to me for free, for nothing. For nothing. For nothing. But it's priceless. So, well, last week we were talking about Panya, wisdom, and Samma Sankappa, right intention. So I think everybody in here has this one. And then I've got one that I made up for today, knowing this one isn't going to take us all of our time. And this is kind of a supplement to that one. I wanted to clarify some of the concepts in the one from last week. So there's a little bit of a supplement to that.
Thank you, teacher.
We have a lot of teachers in here.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So we'll get to this one a little bit. That which has been put together is the name of this handout. But we'll review a few things from last week, and we'll complete this talk with the material in this right intention handout. And I guess what I want to do is just go back to on page 2. I'll touch on a couple of things. One of the quotes of the Buddha there from the Satipatthana Sutta, he says, and what bhikkhus, monks or beggars, what bhikkhus is right thought? Thoughts directed to liberation from sensuality, thoughts free from ill will, and thoughts free from cruelty. This bhikkhus is called right thought. And one thing that occurs to me is that, like in the experiences of mindfulness, like what I was describing last night, those experiences are rich in sensuality because there's the smells, there's the feeling of the wind and the temperature and the humidity, there's the different sights of plants and clouds and the way the blue sky starts to turn a dark color as the sun sets and all these things. So these are very vivid, very sensual experiences. And yet, this is not a problem in the practice because our approach to this is that we're accepting it as it is. So we're not thinking, oh, I wish it was a little warmer or a little cooler or a little earlier, or I wish I had more time to have been out today, but it's just, this is the experience of the present moment. Just sort of allowing all of that beauty, all of that sensual beauty to come in and to just reward you. It's something beautiful to just be experienced in that moment, and then to be willing to let it go completely, not needing it to stay that way, not needing it to be different than it is, just absorbing it as it comes up, enjoying it as it is, letting it pass away as it will. So liberation from sensuality means that you're free from being bound to the craving for sensuality. So that's kind of the distinction. You can look at all that beauty, but you're free from the craving. You're free from being bound by it. So then we go into, there are 3 types of right intention. And remember, the alternate term to right intention is right thought. And both are completely appropriate. Kind of depends on the context that we're talking about, but both are appropriate. The first type of right intention is the intention of renunciation, which is just real simply readiness to let go. So if we know and we recognize that suffering is caused by craving and by clinging and by attachment, if those are the causes of suffering, and we start to cultivate this intention of being ready to let go, that's the first type of right intention. So just knowing, craving, clinging, and aversion, those things lead to my suffering, they lead to my dis-ease, they lead to my dissatisfaction and stress and anxiety, and to that of everyone else. And so I prepare myself to just be ready to let it go when I notice. And maybe I don't notice it every time, but maybe I notice it every 3rd time, or whatever it is. But I have this intention of a readiness to let go. So establishing that intention. And it's not a readiness to let go under the right circumstances, or if it's the right thing that I'm clinging to. Not like, well, I'll let go of anger about this, but I'm not going to let go of anger about that. It's just cultivating this readiness to let go. I'm going to see what I can do. Whenever there's something and I realize craving, clinging, or aversion is present, I am ready to let go. And I'm just going to try and do that. Readiness to let go. So that's the first type of right intention. The second is the intention of goodwill. And I'm going to step back a little bit, because the 3 things we're talking about, they're really the opposites of what are called the 3 unwholesome roots. The 3 unwholesome roots are often described as greed, as ill will or hatred, and as delusion. There's a meditation teacher who I just love. His name is Guy Armstrong, and he gives wonderful talks. And he was talking about the 3 unwholesome roots, and then he defined them this way. And I wrote that down. I just thought it was beautiful. I wanted to share it. So he says, in our society, consumerism promotes greed, right? And greed is one of the 3 unwholesome roots. Racism promotes hatred. Hatred or ill will is one of the 3 unwholesome roots. And biased media promotes delusion, which is operating with a lack of wisdom. So he talked about, just in our current society, the way things are right now, these 3 things are just so prominent. You see it all the time, just in kind of daily news stories. Consumerism. We're bombarded by advertisements, by images of people whose bodies look better than ours, and whose cars are nicer and houses are nicer. All this consumerism, it promotes greed. And then we're told about how others are the source of the problems in our culture or in society or in the world. Whether it's people of a different race or religion or, whatever it is. And so there is the promotion of hatred. And we get that through our news sources in many cases. And then biased media promotes delusion. Have you noticed biased media lately? I think that's all I notice. And I try and get a little bit of a broad spectrum of media from different sources. But I notice that even with the side of the political spectrum that I tend to gravitate towards, I notice that they're very biased as well. It happens to feel a little better to me because it agrees more with my political ideology, but it's certainly biased media. I mean, it's not objective, really all sides of the thing. It's got a definite spin to it. And what Guy Armstrong is saying in his definition of these three things is, biased media promotes delusion. It does not promote wisdom. And delusion is one of the causes of suffering. It's one of the three unwholesome roots. So it's kind of helpful to think about that. What is the source of our news? And even if it is a side that we might agree with ideologically a lot of the time, is it promoting delusion, or is it really promoting honest wisdom? It's something to think about. But I liked his approach to that. So the second, the first is a readiness to let go. It's often described as the intention of renunciation, but really what that means is I'm ready to let go. I'm ready to let go, knowing that the opposite of that, the clinging, craving, and aversion I feel, is going to cause me to suffer. And so I move through life with an intention, readiness to let go. The second is the intention of goodwill. So this is a mind that is established in loving kindness. It is so easy to move around through the day and to encounter different people, different situations, different political groups, different religions, you name it, where we just start to develop a little bit of ill will or animosity. It doesn't have to be intense, but it's so ingrained into our way of thinking that a lot of times it comes up and we're maybe not even aware of it. And of course, ill will or hatred in its more extreme form, obviously that leads to intense disagreements, violence, wars, so we know that results in suffering. So the best practice is to cultivate this intention of goodwill. So just like that readiness to let go, we cultivate this intention of goodwill, that everyone I come across, I'm just going to try and see them with a heart that is open to them as human beings, and to extend goodwill toward them, however that might however that might express itself. However it might express itself, whether it's just a smile here or there, or the pulling back of maybe some negative thoughts that might be on the way in your mind. Pull that back. Think of goodwill. May you be well. May you be free from suffering. May you have what you need in life to be okay. So that's the second one, the intention of goodwill. And then the third one, the intention of harmlessness. I remember reading a teaching by the Buddha where he talked about if a boat moves through the water, it leaves a wake behind it. And a bigger boat leaves a bigger wake, and a smaller boat leaves a smaller wake. But it is possible from the perspective of our karma, of our activities as we move through life, to be traceless. So we can move through life in a way that is so harmless that there's no trace of karma, no wake left behind us. So we can cultivate this with a mind that is established in compassion. Karuna bhavana means to establish compassion or cultivate compassion for all beings. And just this sincere wish that others can be free from suffering, from fear, from pain, and distress. And sometimes we think about people who are maybe fighting in wars, and so they're participating in the very thing that is causing them to suffer. And sometimes it might seem like there's a little confusion there, or a little conflict, a little cognitive dissonance there in our wish for these people to be free from suffering. However, if you know that war is caused by hatred, ill will, greed, delusion, the very things we're talking about, So what we're saying here is, in recognition of that, if those things could be eliminated uh, from the earth or from this situation, if those things could be eliminated, these people really could be free from pain. They really could be well. They could be free from fear and distress and from war. So it really is possible. But it's this readiness of your mind and spirit to be able to go to that place. That's very liberating. And again, you might not catch it every time. You might catch it, but you might not really do it, follow through with it. But sometimes you will, and sometimes it will be very sincere, and you'll notice that that's very transformative. And it just comes from a very pure, open part of the heart, and it leaves you feeling wonderful. It just leaves you with that feeling of peacefulness. It's unsurpassed. Couple of verses toward the end here. At the bottom, lower part of page 3, just a couple of verses that this might be good for a post-it note on the fridge or the bathroom mirror. But we talk about purifying the mind. And so just a simple verse: ready to let go, poised to forgive, continually radiating love and kindness, moving through life, causing harm in no way. So this is an expression of those right intentions: ready to let go, poised to forgive, continually radiating love and kindness, moving through life, causing harm in no way. So it's all about intention. I have a friend who is a vegetarian, and this is kind of a little story on it, on intention. So she's a vegetarian, doesn't eat meat, hasn't eaten meat for quite some time. She was helping out some friends with some things that they needed help on, and afterwards they wanted to show their gratitude by preparing her a nice meal and giving her a nice meal before she left as a thank you. And so as they did this, they prepared food with meat in it, right? And she's a vegetarian. And this showed real wisdom, I thought, is that they prepared the food and they served it, and she realized right away, oh, there's meat in this. But she didn't say a word about that. She didn't say, oh, I'm a vegetarian, or she didn't pick around the meat and just, eat a few vegetables here and there. But she just received that food with the intent, with the spirit which was intended behind it, which was love. They wanted to return the favor and give her this wonderful, loving meal. And so she ate it. She ate the meat knowingly, but she also knew that the intention behind this whole thing was pure. Their intention was, they're not thinking about vegetarianism or anything. They prepared the meat because that's what they're used to eating. And so their intention was pure, and it was based on love and giving and sharing. And her intention was based on receiving that love and caring and sharing, and not doing something that would maybe make them feel bad. So she ate the food with the meat and was very grateful for it, and we talked about that a little bit. And she said it was kind of an odd experience because she was aware of all this as it was going on, but she felt that it would make them feel bad if she didn't receive it, or if she said, oh wait, I'm a vegetarian, I'll pick around the meat. So she had it, and it was wonderful. So, these are the kinds of things that I think the intention is what's behind it. So it's not like a black mark on her record that she's a vegetarian and she ate meat, but it's really, it's a wonderful mark on her record, as if there were a record out there. There isn't, but, it's a wonderful thing that she received this food and wisdom and made these people feel good that they were able to feed her this loving meal. So that's just some thoughts on intention. One of the Well, probably the most popular text in Buddhism and in Buddhist thought is the Dhammapada. And we've talked about this from time to time and actually done some pretty in-depth studies on it. Now, here's a translation by Thomas Byram, which is in the handout for just the first couple of verses of the Dhammapada. He says, "We are what we think." And this is actually what the Buddha says. "We are what we think. All that we are arises with our thoughts. And with our thoughts, we make the world." So he's talking about intention here. We are what we think. We'll think all sorts of different thoughts in a day. Some of them might be helpful, some of them might be harmful, but it's really what's our intention? All that we are arises with our thoughts or our intentions. With our thoughts, we really do create our world. So if we speak or act with an impure mind, and this is where the intention comes in, if we speak or act with unwholesome intention or an impure mind, trouble will follow you. You know, this is where the problems come up. It's the intention. And it's just like the wheel follows the ox that draws the cart. It is just absolutely going to follow and track right behind you. And we are what we think. All that we are rises with our thoughts or our intentions. With our thoughts and intentions, we make the world. Speak or act with a pure mind, with pure intention, wholesome intention, and happiness will follow you as your own shadow, unshakable. It's just glued to you. Sometimes people say or think, you know, look at how he abused me and hurt me, or look what this person did to me. You know, look how she caused me to suffer in this way. Look how he threw me down and robbed me. If you live with thoughts like that, you will live in hate because you're focused on that negativity. You will live in hate. Now, here's the thing that's interesting about this. All of these things could be true, just from an objective, factual perspective. Sometimes people do abuse us and they do hurt us. Fact. Sometimes people do throw us down and rob us. That's a fact. But living with such thoughts, kind of repeating those over and over, ruminating on them, as our friend Linda likes to say, doing that over and over, and we live in hate. We're cultivating hate through those thoughts. But we can take those same thoughts, look at how he abused me and hurt me and how he threw me down and robbed me, and just abandon those thoughts. And the result of that is to live in love. So it's not like we're having to change the story and pretend that he didn't do that, or pretend that we weren't hurt, or pretend that this is some wonderful, benevolent being. But we can just be aware of the effect that this has on us and be willing to let go, readiness to let go. And again, that was that first type of right intention from page 2. The intention of renunciation, the readiness to let go. If we do that, if we abandon such thoughts, we will live in love. And then he says, in this world, hate never yet dispelled hate. So hate never once created love. Only love dispels hate. So that's that cultivating of loving kindness, the intention of goodwill, and the intention of harmlessness, cultivating those states of consciousness, that dispels hate. And when you dispel hate, it's replaced by happiness, replaced by real, true feelings of love and happiness. And it's so true that it's the law. It's considered to be the Dhamma, the law with a Dhamma with a capital D. It is the law that is ancient and inexhaustible. And then included at the end there is, you too, all of us are going to pass away at some point in time. And knowing this, how can you quarrel? Really, what is worth arguing over when you know that at some point in the future you're going to pass away? So if you could imagine yourself on your deathbed reflecting back on things that happened in your life and maybe conflicts that there were between you and other people, if you're focused on the conflict and this person did this to me and boy, I hope they suffer, that sort of a thing. I mean, you're just going to feel the pain of that. But letting that go, you'll feel blissful. Knowing this, how can you quarrel? How can you quarrel? So through repeated practice, the mind becomes inclined to think in a certain way. And this is where we get into practice. Through repeated practice, the mind becomes inclined to think in a certain way. So one who repeatedly thinks of the world as a hostile place full of greedy, self-serving people who are, at their core, evil, will eventually begin to see the evidence of that belief appearing everywhere. And it's pretty easy to do. Any of us could do it right now by just turning on the news and looking at different things that are happening around the world. Not just in the U.S. with the politics here, but anywhere. We could see that stuff. We could see the evidence of that belief appearing. The problem with such thoughts is that they set the wheel of suffering in motion and they keep it spinning out misery. It's that wheel of samsara that's talked about. It spins out misery. That's what it produces, spins out misery. Therefore, the Buddha advises that a person should be the creator of their own thoughts, never leaving them to happenstance. So really this comes down to, let me train the mind to be inclined to think in a certain way. It doesn't mean you have to be blind to the truth or be Pollyanna-ish in your thinking and pretend that bad things are good things or kind of hide your head in the sand. But what it means is that if you are inclined to move towards letting go, to move towards renunciation, that's going to set you free. If you're inclined to move toward goodwill toward others, that's going to move you in that direction. And if you're inclined to move toward harmlessness, again, that's going to move you in the direction of happiness. Knowing that it doesn't happen all the time, you won't always be successful, but if this is the direction you've pointed yourself, it's going to start to pay off. You will start to notice. Then attached to this, I wanted to give this kind of supplement to it because it ties into this real nicely. And it's something that you can observe. I'd encourage you to watch for this over the course of the next week. I'll read this to you, and then we're going to back away from it a little bit and just look at it in very simple terms. So this is under that which has been put together. The experience of you being you is the result of 6 possible inputs, right? So there's sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, and thought. And we've discussed this. So you wake up in the morning, you might see something, and so you begin to think about what you saw. That's your experience of being you, right? Very simple. Nothing really too complicated about it. Or you hear a sound, you become aware of that sound, that becomes the experience of being you. Same thing with a smell or a taste. I mean, all of this just comes in to your experience as being, this is my experience of being me, or the things you touch and the things you think about. So in addition to those things, you might think about another person in your life that you love or you're worried about or that has hurt you in some way, and that too becomes a part of your experience. So it's helpful to sometimes think about, my experience is really the result of one of these 6 possible inputs, or more than one, coming together at any given moment. And the teaching in the sutta says that when a sense object, so anything we can see, anything we can hear, anything we can smell or taste or touch or think about, when a sense object makes contact with its sense faculty, so like when an object of sight, when I make contact with my eyes, there is cognition. I become aware of this shape in front of me and its visual qualities. It's kind of this, bronzy gold color, and it's got some shiny spots, and, so we become aware of that. Just a very simple thing. Immediately after cognizing something like that, it's followed by recognition. So it's like, I see the shape, I see the colors, I see the shadows, and right away my recognition tells me, and that's a bell. It's a meditation bell or a singing bowl. My recognition tells me what this is. And then this, we can call this contact because it's sense contact, visually. This contact evokes a sensation or a feeling, which we subsequently react to. So when I see the bell, generally my reaction to that, the sensation that I get as a result of seeing it, is a pleasant one. It's a warm one. I like the sound of the bell in general. It's got a very soothing sound, a soothing quality. I recognize too that it was made by Tibetan monks, and the tradition is that it has a prayer of compassion kind of built into it. And so all of these things, which are subjective, these are things that my mind brings to this. All of these things change our experience of the object, and so we begin to react to it. Pleasant reactions, sometimes unpleasant reactions, or negative reactions, I could say. So in the suttas, the reaction part of that whole thing is called a sankhara. So really what happens, just you're walking around, you see something that's like sense contact. You perceive it or recognize it. It's like, oh, that's a bell, that's a bowl, that's a box of cereal, that's dirty socks, that's dog poop in the yard. Whatever it is, we're seeing things, we just notice what it is. And the sankhara part of our experience, sankhara means, we usually translate it as reaction, but the literal translation is that which has been put together, and then also that which puts together. So kind of 2 versions of that. But so what I wrote here, and I think this might be a good way to look at it, is we react to these little packages of experience over and over, often unconsciously. So you could look at each one of these little experiences of one of my senses making contact with some sort of an object. I'm recognizing it, and a sensation originates in my being from my exposure to that thing, and I react to it. Like, I like that, I don't like that, craving, aversion, right? Or, boy, I want to, it's such a beautiful day, I want to keep this going, I want to, this relationship is so wonderful, I want to keep this relationship going. Could be anything, but it's just really this simple process. We see stuff, there's contact. Or we hear stuff, that's contact. As soon as we make contact, we're perceiving it as something, and then we're reacting to that. the reaction. Again, it means that which has been put together and that which puts together. The first definition of sankhara is more passive, while the second, the active sense, has karmic implications because it's volitional. So I'll talk about more the passive type of thing. This is based on just stuff we see. We're not really thinking a whole lot about it intentionally. We're not directing the mind to think in a certain way. But based on our conditioning, what we've learned over the course of our lives, we have an experience. And this is kind of the first type of sankhara. So for this one, the passive one, I used kitchen cabinets as an example because I figure we probably all have cabinets in the kitchen, and so we could all relate to this one. So looking at kitchen cabinets, I see oak, I see particle board, I see plywood, and these materials have been assembled in a certain way, and my conditioning, what I've been taught or learned over the course of my life, it tells me that they're kitchen cabinets. Even though there's no intrinsic property in them making them kitchen cabinets, right? So it's oak and particle board and plywood and some other parts and glue and nails and different things, and those all get put together, and my mind tells me they're kitchen cabinets. Pretty simple. And your mind does the exact same thing with your kitchen cabinets. And again, even though there's nothing in them that makes them kitchen cabinets, for example, you could start putting together these different parts. Piece of oak here, piece of plywood here, maybe you're nailing them together. A couple of boards are connected. Are they kitchen cabinets yet? Well, no, not yet. You add a few more boards, a few more pieces of the structure. Are they kitchen cabinets yet? Well, maybe at some point they kind of reach this level where you say, yeah, those are kitchen cabinets. And then the question is, once they're kitchen cabinets, what do you have to take away before they're no longer kitchen cabinets? If you take the doors off, are they now not kitchen cabinets? Or if you took them off the wall, are they not kitchen cabinets? You see, the point is, it's the meaning we assign to things that we're often reacting to. And quite often, the meaning we assign to things is just what we've learned. But one of the wonderful parts of this practice is to start to notice that process taking place. Because so often we'll catch ourselves, not in the case of kitchen cabinets maybe, but in the case of other things, where our reactions to those is sort of negative, and it's causing us to feel a little sour or a little grumpy or a little just unhappy with it. And it's real helpful then in those moments to say, all right, what part of this is the intrinsic characteristic of, the bad thing? Where is the badness in this situation or in this story? And what elements do I have to add to make it that way? Or what elements could I take away before it didn't represent something bad anymore? Does that make sense? It's not a real difficult thing. It's just, we are assigning value to this stuff based on what we've learned. We see things and we say, this is kitchen cabinets. I went a little further with it, and then I'll wrap it up because we're at 8:28. There exist only non-kitchen cabinet elements described collectively as kitchen cabinets, wood and parts. If they're in my kitchen, I might refer to them as my kitchen cabinets. If they're in your kitchen, I might refer to them as your kitchen cabinets. If the cabinets were in my garage, I might refer to them as garage cabinets. Because I remove the previous cabinets, these become the new cabinets, and those I remove become the old cabinets, and so on and so forth. All of this perception is based on conditioning, what I've been taught or what I've learned over the course of my life. And the sankhara aspect of the experience is that which has been put together. My mind assembles the parts into kitchen cabinets. Again, nothing inherent in those pieces of oak or particle board and plywood that make them kitchen cabinets. It all comes down to conditioning. We can understand this process easily when we examine something like cabinets, but the wonderful thing is we can apply the same process of discriminative wisdom to other experiences in life as well. And this is where we start to use our intention as a way of shaping our experience. So this is how it takes that right intention, and we start to really be able to use that as a tool for liberating ourselves and for feeling better. So next week we'll pick up here and we'll conclude this, but I think it's a very helpful thing. I find it for me as just absolutely amazing as a transformative practice. So I want to share it with you next week. But before we go, let's just take 1 minute together. Here's more intention that we're working with, which is the intention that may all beings be free from suffering and from the causes of suffering. Just all beings. And may all beings be surrounded by love and kindness. And may all beings be joyful and happy. May all beings be equanimous, peaceful, free, not craving, not experiencing aversion or clinging. And then you, here tonight, sharing the space with me, sharing these precious moments of your consciousness, may you all be truly happy. May you all be truly free and peaceful. May you be surrounded by love and kindness. Namaskar, everybody. Thank you for coming.
I have an issue with some of that, though.
What's
when
that?
you see total injustice, like somebody taking 24 million people off of health care and throwing them to the whatever, that's greed, that's wrong, and I can't just sit there and say, oh, well, I'm going to be peaceful with this. I can't do that. It's
Well,
wrong, it's an injustice to, I mean, it's just one example. I mean, there's
Right.
other things, too,
Yeah.
puppy mills or, things
Puppy
like that.
mills or human trafficking.
Yeah, so how do you let that go?
Or all kinds of other things. Well, what the practice really talks about is how we notice the tendencies of our mind to repeat these same habitual processes over and over that lead us in a direction of suffering.
I'm not talking about my life, I'm talking about something of others that I see and feel for them.
But there is nothing in this that precludes you from being able to go out and take real action for justice.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. But a lot of times what this will do, like if there's somebody I want to protest against, somebody that I really, I feel a lot of ill will towards because of whatever their political views are, whatever different types of legislation they've passed that are causing other people to suffer.
Yeah.
Well, if I'm generating a lot of animosity and ill will within myself, I mean, the recognition is I suffer as a result of that, and that doesn't feel good.
But I suffer more if I don't take action.
Well, but see, the thing is do take action.
Yeah.
None of this is saying to be passive and to just let all that stuff happen and pretend it's okay. But what it is to recognize the parts of you that suffer on a regular basis because of, these three unwholesome types of you that come up. So whether it's, so really, if the politicians that were causing these problems could realize the fact that their greed, their ill will, and their willingness to harm others is doing so much damage. What we can do is, I think if we go to a protest and, like some of them, we break windows and we throw Molotov cocktails at the police, we accomplish nothing, because we're operating now out of greed and anger and animosity and ill will. But if we can come to these things and we can really, like Ram Dass said, protest only when you can love the people you're protesting with as much as you love yourself. And I've always thought that that was a really good one, because
Protesting with or against? You said love the people you protest.
protesting against is to be able to approach them with love and compassion and a desire for them to be well also, but being willing to take political action, to be an activist, there's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to sit and just watch, horrible things happen to people.
Yeah.
You can go out and do it. But what this is really saying is just, in the meantime,
Don't let it eat you up.
yeah, in the meantime, and it's a lot of times it's stuff that's other than that. I mean, if you think about the garden variety suffering that you experience on a daily basis, some of that might be due to learning about people losing health care or, different injustices. Some of that might be due to that, but quite a bit of it is due to other stuff. So it's really, you're observing all of these things happening and you're noticing what you're reacting to. And so, yeah, there's times where you have to say, I need to protest. There's times where you have to say, I need to go donate my time to serving others in the community, or donating money or time. But really what this is about is, how can I live in my own life, in my own body, in a way where I'm not constantly suffering and traumatized by this stuff.
It's hard.
Yeah, it is hard. It is hard. And I think one of the ways that, I really see it kind of magnificently dealt with is the case of my daughter, who went over to Iraq and just volunteered to work in the refugee camp with the people who were coming out of Syria and coming out of other parts in Iraq. So there's this awareness that there's all this hatred and all this ill will out there. Yeah, and there's I'm not going to engage in the hatred and the ill will part of this, but what I am going to do is go there and help heal these people. And so, so it's not a trying to convince you to just roll over and let the bad stuff happen. But in a way, it helps you to focus your power and your energy in a way where you can really make a difference, because you're not expending it on the little things.
So when protesters were screaming at, what was her name, DeVos?
Yeah.
So they shouldn't have done that? They should have done something more passive or
Well,
not angry?
Those graduates just turned their backs on her. They
But
didn't.
they
The
were
people outside were screaming.
No,
Yeah.
Did they? I
she
didn't
didn't get
see
to
that.
talk.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with protesting. I don't think there's
But
anything
they
wrong
were
with being.
angry.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with being disruptive. If you look at it in terms of how did they feel after doing it, I mean, you can watch those protests on the news, and when people make their comments, they're just seething with anger. They're shaking, and you can actually see that. So their experience is intense suffering as they're doing that. Well, I think
said some really stupid. She made some stupid comment about how it was really nice that blacks had started their own university, and it was like, duh, they weren't allowed to go to the white schools. I mean, that's
Yeah.
how stupid she is.
Yeah.
Who said that? DeVos, when she was speaking at that black college. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, anyway.
Well,
see you next week.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Take care, everybody.
Yep.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night. Don't forget to look at the sunset.